Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then, you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel like I've been having a lot more connection with my listeners through the Q&As and polls. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Hi, I'm Father Daniel Duplantis, a Catholic priest, martial artist, and host of the Karate Priest podcast. Have you ever wondered what the church teaches about different topics? Are you a martial arts enthusiast or just someone who wants to learn more about martial arts? I'd like to invite you to join me and many guests on my podcast as we cover topics of faith, everyday living, and martial arts on the Karate Priest podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to A Catholic's Perspective, the podcast all about being a young Catholic surviving in a secular world. While we're waiting for season 4 to come out, I decided to do this bonus episode because I know I have a lot of new listeners and I want to get to know you guys and I want you guys to get to know me as well. So this episode is basically going to be about getting to know me. If you guys want to know about my reversion story, I have a YouTube video about it, which I will link in the description of this episode. But basically I was born and raised a cradle Catholic, and then when I was 11 years old, I fell away from the church. I came back when I was 19 after a major conversion I had in front of the Eucharist, and ever since then, I've been on this journey, and so that's kind of the gist of my story. If you guys want to know more about that, again, I've linked the video down below, but for now, we're going to get into some of these questions. I kind of wanted this to be a get to know me session, and so on my story, I put up what are some things you guys want to know about me, and these are some questions. So I'm going to answer those for you guys today. So kicking it off here, we have Brisket451 who asked, "Who is your favorite saint?" My favorite saint is St. Francis of Assisi. I've always had a very strong devotion to St. Francis because I've always been very drawn to animals and, I've always been barefoot. There's that. And I love roses. I mean, he threw himself into a rose bush, so I don't know if he really loved roses, but and then my confirmation saint is St. Rose of Lima. I love her as well, though I still struggle to cultivate a relationship with her. I'm still trying to figure out why I chose her back when I was getting confirmed. I don't really remember why, but I know there was a reason, and so I'm really trying, but that relationship hasn't really blossomed yet. So I would definitely say St. Francis of Assisi is my favorite saint at the moment. Okay, moving on. Somebody asked, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? So for me personally, when I was a kid, the only thing I ever remember wanting was to be famous. I wanted to be famous for something, whether that was for music or for being an actress. I wanted to do something and I wanted to be known. Little did I know that eventually that would come to fruition, but not in the way that I expected. And I'm just very grateful that I had that fiery kick in me as a child. And, I basically wanted to be an actress, and I pursued musical theater for quite a while as well. I was a musical theater kid, if you can believe it, and I really enjoyed those times. I was in plays like, Spamalot, Much Ado About Nothing, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is Spamalot, sorry. I was also in a kids-friendly version of Chicago, if you can imagine that, West Side Story, and I think Grease, if I remember correctly. It was just a really fun time, and I honestly really miss those days. But yeah, the more I got into it, the more I realized I could not stand the people who were involved in acting. They were just really fake, and I just felt like I didn't fit into their secular views because, let's be honest, a lot of people who are in that world are very liberal, very secular, and that it was very hard for me to be myself and feel like I could fit in. But overall, you know what, I really enjoyed theater, and I miss it, you know? Our next question is, do you have friends with different views than you? Yes, not as many as I used to have when I was first coming back into my faith, because at that point, I knew that I was going to have a lot of friends who decided not to be friends with me anymore due to my decision of going back to the church. And that happened a lot. I mean, I struggled with feeling lonely for a very long time. And, you know, I wish I could say that I got over it and, you know, I moved on, but it gave me a lot of trust issues that to some point I'm still actually working through. But I do still have friends who have different views than I do, but I think the difference here is that they're respectful. And I think that's something that people forget, is that I can have different views as somebody else, but I don't like being disrespected. And neither does anyone else. You know, I don't think any of us like to be disrespected. And so that's something that I really enjoyed, was the fact that the friends I have now who have different views, I can still sit down with them, have a cup of coffee, and we can talk about these issues, you know, that are important to me, such as, you know, pro-life topics, Catholic topics, things of that nature. And even though they might not agree with me, they still are very understanding, and they're not disrespectful about it. And that's kind of hard to find these days. So if you have people like that, definitely hold on to them. They're great. Next question we have is, why did you decide to post about your faith? You know, it was interesting. I remember sitting in the parking lot of the church I was going to at the time. It was in Novus Ordo Parish, and I was on TikTok, and I had been on TikTok for probably a year and a half or something along those lines, but I posted a lot of secular TikToks, if you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't dancing, but it was just voiceovers, and it was really dumb. And I was like, you know what? I haven't been able to find my niche yet when it comes to TikTok. Maybe this is something that's my niche. And so I recorded a very, very short video. It's probably only like 7 seconds long, and it's called Catholic Check. And that video blew up almost overnight. And ever since then, it kind of just snowballed into what it is today. And honestly, it was all through God. It wasn't really my decision. I didn't think anything of it when I posted it. And then all of a sudden, it's like I have thousands and thousands of followers, and I don't know how to handle that. I don't know how to handle the attention. I don't know how to handle the hate. So it was kind of an overnight thing. I didn't really expect it, and it was something that I kind of just rolled with. I wasn't really sure what to do about it. Obviously now I have a better grasp on that as I've been integrated more into it. But yeah, I didn't necessarily post about my faith thinking that I was going to get a bunch of followers. I just thought, well, maybe, you know, because there's nobody out there, when I was looking, at least as a young Catholic, who fit my needs, maybe I could be that person for someone else. And so that was the intention behind posting, kind of like finding my niche, finding people who might have been through similar situations. Because when I would go online and I'd go on YouTube and things like that, no offense to the guys that do this, but like Catholic Answers, they're all old guys, and not like super old guys, but you know what I mean. And so I just felt kind of alone, and I felt like nobody had this experience that I had. And lo and behold, when I started posting about my faith and gaining thousands of followers, other people started doing it, and we started, you know, forming this beautiful community. And that's something that I just really love. So yeah, that's kind of why I started sharing about my faith. Our next question's from Celine, and she says, how was your friend's stage with your fiance? You know, it was really interesting because when we first met, we met at a young adult group at our parish, and he recognized me from my videos, my ministry, but he treated me differently than what I was expecting, because usually when people come up to me, this has happened multiple times, people have grabbed me and have yanked me to get my attention, which is not appropriate. Please do not do that. That scares the living daylights out of me. People have cornered me, interrogated me about stuff, have been really creepy, tried to try to basically go out with me right away, and I'm like, okay, no, that's not it. Max, on the other hand, he introduced himself, he asked some questions, I asked him some questions, and then he left me alone. And I was like, that's interesting. And it intrigued me a little bit. And so I kind of was drawn to him throughout the course of the night, just this mysterious man. I was like, who is this? And so we became friends mainly in September. We had that basis of being acquaintances for a few weeks, or actually technically a month and a couple weeks, because we met in the end of July of 2022. And then, in September, I went to Matt Fradd's and I did a podcast episode with him on his channel. And so that's when we really became closer, because we would text like all the time. And we text about Catholicism. We would text about, what we wanted in families. We honestly got a lot of hard topics out of the way while we were just friends. Like what we wanted in families, what we wanted out of like marriage, careers, things like that. Like we talked about all of that while we were just friends. And it was nice because getting all of that out of the way as friends, kind of laid this foundation for a better relationship, because we already had a lot of stuff out of the way. Now, granted, we still had bigger issues to go over, such as, politics and homeschooling and things. Those actually didn't end up being big issues because we agreed on everything together. However, in your head, you kind of build them up as big issues, and the anticipation of bringing this up to somebody you love is very difficult, because you feel like, oh, well, what if they don't feel the same? What if they don't have the same ideas as I do? And like, this is something we can't come to terms with. It's really nerve-wracking. I understand that. And it was odd because we had all of these really difficult conversations, and we mainly had them as friends. And so when we started dating, we mainly had to go over our pasts and like just, be honest with each other about certain things. But in general, we were like, oh, we got most of this out of the way before we even started dating. We started dating in November. And so the friend phase was honestly very relaxed. We had this openness and this honesty about each other, We didn't shy away from any topic because we didn't really have any, We didn't really have, oh my gosh, I can't think of the word, like expectations. We didn't have any expectations for each other when we were just friends. But then as time kind of went on, we gained feelings for each other. Probably end of October is when we really started liking each other a lot. And that's when everything kind of started taking off. But the friend stage was very normal, very neutral, and honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of our relationship was when we were friends, because, we were goofy and it was just a really wholesome experience. I'm obviously so blessed we're engaged now, and I'm just so happy about that. And there's so many blessings to come, but yeah, the friend stage was just awesome. I loved it. Next question is, what is the target demographic for your ministry? I don't feel like I'm in it. I'm sorry if you don't feel like you're in it. Honestly, my ministry is for a lot of different people. I mean, parents have found my ministry extremely helpful in navigating how to help their kids stay Catholic or come back to the faith. Young adults between the ages of 12 to 25, I guess teens and young adults, have found it very helpful in, navigating a difficult time in their faith, especially with what's going on in the church right now. Or coming back to the faith. Honestly, my content's for everybody. I don't discriminate against like anybody from any area of your background. I'm just here to spread the love of Jesus, to share my own story, and I hope that that can inspire you to then also go and discover Jesus for yourself, and through the Catholic Church specifically, of course. But yeah, I mean, no matter what walk of life you're in, how old you are, how young you are, I would hope that most of my content is diverse enough to reach everybody. I would say that my content isn't always for the younger kids, like under the age of 12. I feel like it's probably not appropriate for children sometimes, because sometimes now that I'm older as well, I'm talking about a lot of different topics that can be a little heavier. But for the most part, my demographic is all over the map. If I were to go onto social media and tell you my demographic, it would be 18 to 25-year-olds mainly. A little bit more would be like 35-year-olds, and then Americans, basically. But, I mean, all are welcome. Honestly, I don't discriminate. Another person asked, will you be voting for Trump? So here's the thing. as an NFP, I actually cannot endorse any specific politician. Otherwise, I could lose my NFP status. So people have been wondering why I've been more quiet about my political views, and that's the main reason why, is because as an NFP now, I can't really get political. I can definitely talk about issues like being pro-life, and all that stuff. And so you guys can probably guess who I'd vote for, but I cannot endorse a specific politician in general, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I do get a lot of political questions, and I usually try and stay away from those as best I can. The best way that I like to have my political views voiced is through the other people. And so I usually have guests on my podcast. We had John Doyle last year, which was fantastic. He did a great podcast segment with me, and I highly suggest you guys go check that out. But yeah, I usually try to shy away from that because I could lose my NFP status. Next question is, what do you think about mothers working? Here's the thing. I do believe that in general, mothers are more fulfilled when they are stay-at-home moms. I think society has lied to women saying they need to compete with men and that they'll be happier working in corporate, whatever. That doesn't mean that I don't think women should go for degrees like engineering or things like that. I think it's great if women decide to work remotely, stuff like that, help their husband out. However, I do think that the most important duty we can do as women is raise children for society. And the only way you can raise them for society is if you're there to raise them and you take that seriously. And I don't think women need to compete with men. In fact, people say like, oh, I'm going on this work day and, I have a boss and all of this stuff. But then at the same time, there are people saying like, oh, you're oppressed because you're a stay-at-home mom taking care of your husband and your kids. And it's like, well, you're either taking care of a boss and putting in work hours where they can replace you instantly, or you can be at home with your kids where they need you and you're irreplaceable and you're serving your husband and you're doing this beautiful duty. Again, that's not to say that women, I don't think women should work. I think they have a lot of things to offer in the workforce, but I definitely think that if possible, they should prioritize being mothers, and pursuing motherhood, because that is a vocation and that's very important. And we need good moms today. Our next question is, favorite thing about being Catholic? Obviously, the Eucharist. I have to say this because it's the pinnacle of our faith. It's the whole reason why we are Catholic. If we didn't have the Eucharist, it wouldn't make sense as to why we're Catholic. And so, honestly, that's all I can say is definitely because of the Eucharist. Next question is, what is your favorite prayer to pray? I would have to say I have so many. I have so many, but I would say probably the Jesus prayer, which is, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. This is one that I just repeat consistently throughout my day, because whenever I mess up or I do something I know I shouldn't, or I just failed in some area that I knew I should do better in, I will pray this prayer, because in a way it's a reminder for myself that I am a sinner and I need Jesus Christ, but also it's almost a form of reparation as well for the wrongdoings that I've done that day and stuff. I always suggest an examination of conscience as well, but that's probably one of my favorite prayers to pray for sure. Cody asks, how many siblings do you have? I have one older sister. She lives out in Washington and she's a chemical engineer. She's 4 years older than me. So she's getting married actually a month after me. So it's really exciting. We get to kind of share in this wedding planning together. And it's just a really fun time for us to connect because of such a big age gap. It's sometimes hard to connect because we're never in the same area of life as each other. And so this has been a really fun experience, being able to talk to each other about wedding prep and, what we're doing. It's just been really fun. But yeah, I have one older sister. Sarah asks, favorite Marian apparition and or Marian title? I'm going to do both. So my favorite Marian apparition is Our Lady of Fatima. I think that's a very common one, but I absolutely love Our Lady of Fatima. 10 out of 10. Ask her for her intercession and pray the rosary daily. As for the Marian title, my favorite Marian title is Star of the Sea. I just think that's just so beautiful, especially when it's said in Latin. It's just, I love it so much. So that would probably be my favorites. Diana asked if I like sports. I do not like sports. Actually, I find them quite repetitive, and kind of boring unless I'm actually there in a stadium watching what's going on. My sister took us to a hockey game last year for Christmas, and that was a lot of fun. I liked watching people get beat into the ice and all that fun stuff. That was exciting. But watching it on the TV just does not have the same hit, you know? It just doesn't, it's not as fun, I would have to say. So I would definitely like to say that I enjoy sports to an extent if they're in person, but on the TV, I don't enjoy them. Nope. And our final question today is, have you ever had Texas Roadhouse? The answer is yes. I have had Texas Roadhouse, and their little buns are to die for with like the cinnamon honey. Oh my gosh. If I could just have that for dinner, I would. I'm not even kidding you. I love those little, like their little honey buns, and like, oh, they're so freaking good. I wish I could make them myself. I still haven't figured out the proper recipe for them. I know there's like look-alike recipes or like taste-alike recipes out there on the internet. So I've been trying to scour the internet for those and find something that's similar, but I have yet to do that. So, yeah, but I really do enjoy Texas Roadhouse. I don't know about the food quality, how good it is anymore, but I just go for the biscuits. I don't care about the steaks, man. I just want the biscuits. But yeah, with all of that being said, guys, I'm sorry that this episode's a little bit shorter. I just kind of wanted to reintroduce myself to anyone out there who might not know me as well. And so, yeah, that's basically it. And don't forget that season 4 of A Catholic's Perspective comes out in September. The first episode airs September 5th. So stay tuned for that. I am so excited for that. And with all of it being said,
I'm Josh Klein.
And I'm Elise Hugh.
We host a podcast from Accenture called Built for Change.
Every part of every business is being reinvented right now. That means companies are facing brand new pressures to use fast evolving technologies and address shifting consumer expectations.
But with big changes come even bigger opportunities. We've talked with leaders from every corner of the business world to learn how they're harnessing change to totally reinvent their companies.
And how you can do it too.
Subscribe to Built for Change now so you don't miss an episode.
Thank you so much for listening to A Catholic's Perspective with me, The Religious Hippie. Make sure to visit my official website at thereligioushippie.com, and while you're there, be sure to sign up for my newsletter to keep up to date with my latest news and offerings. You can also find me on virtually any social media site as The Religious Hippie. Thanks for listening.
A quest is a search for something. And every week, the Quest podcast will show you how we know what we know through interviews with people that have incredible stories of dedication and perseverance. I'm your host, Todd Fisher. Join me in this thought-provoking and inspiring podcast of discovery. Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Michigan Economic Development Corporation. In Michigan, you can have both a rewarding career and a quality lifestyle, with plentiful career opportunities in world-changing, innovating industries, from electric vehicles to clean energy to biotech, with room for advancement no matter where you are in your career. Plus, Michigan offers a welcoming, beautiful, affordable, and inclusive community for all. Live your best life. You can in Michigan. Visit themichiganlife.org.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Amber Rose and distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright by The Religious Hippie, NFP. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for The Religious Hippie at thereligioushippie.com or find me on social media for other unique content.